ladies, welcome to the second episode of Her History podcast, where we remember the influential women left behind in history. My name is Amal, and today we are going to be talking about Enheduanna, a triple threat with the titles of poet, princess, and priestess. She's also the first ever author, ever. But before we start, let's chat for a little bit. Let's get cozy, grab a snack. I'm actually in my closet right now because that's where I have the best sound. And my dog is cuddled up right next to me. He's fast asleep. I put a little furry blanket in here for him. He looks really cute. So today's story is about writing. So I want to ask, what are your favorite books? What are we reading? Comment below and let's have a little book club in the comments. I'm actually between books right now. I just finished Poison for Breakfast by Lemony Snicket. You know, I read a lot of his books as a child, so his writing is very nostalgic for me. I'm sure it is for a lot of people. If you don't know, he wrote a series of unfortunate events. I still need to finish watching that on Netflix. Anyway, Poison for Breakfast was great because it has that Lemony Snicket writing, but it's also more aimed towards adults. It's about him solving his own murder mystery, but it's more about his thoughts along the way. So he covers a lot of philosophical topics. It's really short, so it's a good, quick read. It makes you think. If you like mysteries, wordplay, philosophy, you'll like it. I have The Stranger by Albert Camus sitting on my nightstand, so I think I'll read that next. I don't know too much about it, but it was recommended. I'm pretty sure it's another murder mystery. If I had to recommend any book to you all, it would probably be my favorite, The Secret History. It's another murder mystery. I should probably recommend something about women, though, considering this podcast. I really enjoyed The Paris Secret. It's a historical fiction about a female pilot in World War II, and it has a really good romance subplot. I only like romance as a subplot, not as a main plot, which may be a hot take, but yeah, it's a really great, empowering story, and it also includes a real-life woman named Catherine Dior, Christian Dior's sister. I should do a podcast episode about her. A lot of people don't know that the name behind Miss Dior, you know, the perfume, was a spy in the war. Okay, yeah, let's save that for next week. Let's get back to today's story. But before we get into the story, we are going to go into our first segment, which is called Today in Women's History. Today is, when I'm recording this, April 3rd. And today we've only got one woman, and that is Jane Goodall. Jane Goodall, primatologist and conservationist, and the world's foremost authority on chimpanzees, was born today in 1934. If you want to know more about her, make sure to go to todayinwomenshistory.org, and they have further reading on her story. And actually, I believe it was last week, if I remember correctly, Jane Goodall actually came to my school to speak. Unfortunately, I was so sad I couldn't make it. I had to work that night, but she did speak at my school. I'm sure that was super interesting. Alright, that's it for Today in Women's History. Now to the story. I want to give a real quick disclaimer, especially for this episode, that I apologize if I pronounce anything wrong. I tried my best to look up the pronunciations, but I can't guarantee it'll be perfect. Alright, let's get into it. A long time ago, like in the year 2250 BC, lived a woman named Enheduanna. Enheduanna lived in ancient Mesopotamia, the region of Southwest Asia, now known as the Middle East. Just to set the scene, Mesopotamia is often referred to as the cradle of civilization because of just how many innovations came from the early societies there. To name a few are writing, recorded history, cities, political systems, In relation to today's story, it was also the birthplace of the first ever author, as Enheduanna holds the titles of princess, priestess, and poet. Oh, my dog's awake. He's adjusting his bed right now. He does this thing where he digs and digs through the blankets until it's like perfect. I don't know what his standards are. Okay, I think his standards were met. Back to the story. When people ask who the first author was, few know that it was a woman, and fewer actually know who she was. She was little known until 1927. That's when Sir Leonard Woolley, an archaeologist, found the objects bearing her name. Enheduanna's name in Sumerian means ornament of heaven, which is fitting considering what her works were about and the role she played. Her father was King Sargon of Akkad, or Sargon the Great, who may be responsible for the first ever empire. After binding together the northern region of Akkad, he also captured the Sumerian south. The king appointed his daughter the title of priestess, making her vital to his conquests, as she was the one who peaceably melded the people of each different region together. She did this by melding their beliefs, emphasizing links between the Akkadian goddess Ishtar and Sumerian goddess Inanna through her hymns and poems. You may know of the goddess in her later form, the Greek Aphrodite. She was able to write stories that provided a richer understanding of the two beliefs. She brought their deities down to earth, making them deep and compassionate characters, which in turn made them more accessible. She was able to present them as gods for all of the people. Her best-known works hold the translated titles, The Great-Hearted Mistress, The Exaltation of Inanna, and Goddess of the Fearsome Powers. There are 42 known hymns she wrote for the temples across Mesopotamia, as they continued to be copied by scribes for hundreds of years. Her works were written in the form of cuneiform, an ancient method of writing on clay tablets. At the bottom of each tablet, at the end of her hymns, her authorship is confirmed when she writes, "The compiler of the tablet is Enheduanna. My lord, that which has been created here, no one has created before." We're going to take a short break for today's sponsor. Want new things to read but aren't sure what? If you don't want to dig back 4,000 years to read Enheduanna's tales, download Audibly. I listen to Audibly's audiobooks every day while I'm brushing my teeth, eating, going on a walk, and to fall asleep. When you sign up, Audibly has you take a 10-minute quiz to learn all about your reading style, so you can get a personalized playlist of audiobooks that you are 100% guaranteed to enjoy every single month. If for some reason you don't love a book, Audibly will let you swap it out to anything you want. For over 10 years, Audibly has been the #1 audiobook provider globally. Go download Audibly right now. Trust me, you won't regret it. At sign up, use our code HERHISTORY30 to get 3 months free. That is HERHISTORY30 for 3 months on us. The archaeologist, Sir Woolley, I mentioned earlier, also found a calcite disc at the excavation site located in the ancient city of Ur. The disc had a scene engraved on it that further proves Enheduanna's existence. An image of her is carved out marching alongside 3 attendants carrying ritual objects to a temple. We know it is her because of her elaborate outfit, a circular headdress, and a flounced robe. Her eyes are raised to the goddess of love and war, Inanna. Speaking of Inanna, she was the subject of many of her poems, and these poems even had illustrations. The poem titled Inanna and Ebe is about the goddess battling her enemy, a mountain range. So there are images of her armed with weapons on her shoulders as she kills the mountain's male god. I'll read you a few of the translated lines so you can really get the picture. She sharpened both edges of her dagger. She took Ebbe's neck as if tearing up grass. She presented the blade into its heart. She yelled like thunder so that the stones making up Ebbe crashed down its back. At the end, she proudly places her foot upon the fallen stones, which is also illustrated for the first time ever. The fact that she wrote so many poems and played such an important part in building her father's empire reveals so much about the ancient civilization, and that it was actually pretty liberal. For one, it shows that women were allowed to be literate, which in some societies way into the future that wouldn't be a thing. Along with the tablets and discs discovered, there were many more images found of women participating in the Mesopotamian society. Others would be commissioned to write religious texts, but others would take on a wide variety of trades outside the traditional gender norms. And get this, women could even own property. As I said, Enheduanna wasn't recognized until about 4,000 years later in the 20th century. Now, her excavated works can be seen in the Morgan Library and Museum. The anthropologist Marta Weigel introduced her to feminist scholars. A crater on Mercury was named after Enheduanna. If you're interested in reading some of the work by the first ever author, I know many of her poems are translated in the electronic text corpus of Sumerian literature, which is a digital library filled with all sorts of literature from the era. I'll link that in the description below if you want to read some of it. So at the end of each episode, I like to highlight a woman-owned business so that we can support not just women of history, but women of today. Today's business is Cakes for a Cause Bake Shop. Based in her home kitchen in Miami, Jessica Galdamez makes some of the best cheesecakes around. I've tried them, so I would know. They come in so many unique flavors like Golden Teddy, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and my favorite, the 305 with guava. See these flavors and more on her Instagram at cakesforacause.bakeshop. Go to www.cakesforacauseBakeshop.com to place your order. I recommend the Poppers, perfect bite-sized mini cheesecakes. Best of all, 10% of all sales are donated to a local Down Syndrome association in honor of her son, the inspiration behind the whole business. So my lovelies, that is it for today's episode. If you enjoyed today's story, please subscribe and turn on those notifications so you can catch future episodes. All existing episodes can be seen on our website or on this YouTube channel. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok, just at Her History Podcast. Over there, it's really interesting. You can see some images from today's story, like those clay tablets and the disc that Sir Woolley excavated. And you can just stay updated on all things women history. As always, you can find all the links in the description. I'm going to leave you all with a quote from the influential Toni Morrison, also an author. If there's a book you really want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it.